So a few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of interviewing Alex Campi and Cliff Bleszinski, both people that worked and co-created the new comic book series Scrapper. Scrapper issue 1 released back in July, and Scrapper issue 2 is set to release later this month. Now, I unfortunately don't have the video from that interview because the connection wasn't so great, and I don't want to do Cliff and Alex a disservice by making their appearance look bad. So I do have the audio though, so you guys will be able to listen to my interview with them. And I want to thank Alex Campi and Cliff Bleszinski for taking the time to allow me to interview them. They were both a treat to speak with. Go and get Scrapper right now. It's such a great comic. It's about a dog that's a hero, and it's got this dystopian feel to it, and it kind of reminds me of like Blade Runner, but with dogs. It's pretty great. So go and check that out now. There's a link in the description below of where you guys can go and find where that's at, or look for it, or purchase it yourself. But also, I want to thank those of you for subscribing to our channel. We're almost at 1,500 subscribers. Please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel as we provide a ton of different content, from video games to movies to going to conventions, pro wrestling even, and now comics. So thanks for watching, and here is my interview with Alex Campi and Cliff Bleszinski. So let's get into it, man. So first, like I said before, thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this interview with Scrapper. The day that this came out, a few weeks ago, I went to my local shop and I picked up 3 cover variants here as well. So I've got mine, and
well, thank you.
So we got Cliff Bleszinski here. Of course, you probably know him from Gears of War, although we're not going to be talking about video games in this interview because we're talking about comics. And, Cliff, I've followed your career for a very long time, when you started with Jazz Jackrabbit many years ago. And I never thought that my first talk or interview with you would be about comics. This is so awesome. And we've got Alex Campi here. She's no stranger to the world of comics. She's a comic writer. She has a very popular comic out called Dracula Motherfucker. And yes, that's what we're talking about here, is comics. And let's get into it. I reviewed Scrapper. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. I've read through it several times. My wife, who really isn't even big into comics, she read through it, absolutely loved it as well. She's super stoked for the next issues. You guys are going to be putting out 1 issue a month. I know we got issue 2 coming out, I think, later this month.
August 23rd, right? August 23rd, right, Alex?
Yep. Oops.
Perfect.
I just sent it off to print on Monday.
Nice. And you guys are working with Image Comics to publish this series.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just get into this, man. So first, I gotta ask, what was the inspiration for Scrapper? Why a superhero dog to begin with?
Well, first off, I am at my best creatively when I have somebody to bounce ideas off of. Like, working with Alex has been absolutely wonderful. She's brilliant. She's cerebral. She's intense, and she just gets shit done. Right. So it's the same thing with Gears, when I could bounce ideas off of Lee Perry and Rod Ferguson. Right. Like, and same thing with my wife and I. We're working on a short story about a woman who's in an abusive marriage with an alcoholic husband, and she's a cosplayer, kind of like the Farrah Fawcett's The Burning Bed for the new generation. Anyway, what happened was, my studio boss key that I had for video games wound up cratering. As my dog, Teddy, that's the shrine to him behind me, he could no longer walk. And then the harness that we had to take him out to go pee and poo wound up giving him sores. Then he became incontinent. And so I had to put him down right as my studio was cratering. And so what I always say is, after the year of spontaneous crying stopped, my wife found this Pomsky online, and mostly husky. And we wound up scooping her up after going to the final season premiere of Game of Thrones. Yes, the final season was uneven. It's the elephant in the room. And then we wound up scooping her up in Charlotte and bringing her home. And it's decided that feelings are like rivers or tributaries where you can kind of redirect them. And I directed my grief from losing my Australian Shepherd into the love of my Pomsky. And then one day I was just looking at her and I'm like, has there ever been a really fucking badass dog superhero? Like, has there? Like, you got, there's no need to fear, underdog is here. You get like fucking, like Bolt was actually just an actor. Crypto's all right, but it's like, what happens when the kids who love Paw Patrol get a little bit older, and just I literally got to give a copy of issue 1 to Don Bluth at Raleigh's GalaxyCon, and he said he's leafing through it, and he said he loved it, and so he was a huge inspiration for a lot of it. And then Alex and I both love dogs, and understanding kind of the dog mentality, and just wanting to make a badass dog superhero. Alex?
I'm like trying to send you guys a picture of my dog through the chat, which you can do in Zoom, but you can't actually do in Google Meet. So you're not going to see pictures of my dogs, unfortunately. But yeah, I've got 2 dogs. I volunteered for a dog rescue for a dozen years, Red Hook Dog Rescue in New York City,
Nice.
which focuses on like special needs and elderly dogs. I got one of my dogs I adopted when he was 12 in December during the first year of the pandemic. And then I adopted the second dog when she was 13, the second year of the pandemic, exactly 1 year later, because he really he can't do anything about female dogs, but he likes female dogs. So I got my dog a dog, and they're both so he's 55 pounds, like pit bulldog mix, and she's a 75-pound pit boxer mix, and they're just really great dogs. I feel like there's been such an emphasis on like franchise entertainment recently in popular culture that there hasn't been a lot of really interesting original new stuff, and they're not going to do interesting original new stuff with things like Crypto the Wonder Dog, because that's I know how DC and Warner Brothers work, and it's just like that, like maybe in a decade, I don't know, but nothing's going to happen fast, and nothing that isn't like completely decided by committee and watered down to the most mid version is going to happen.
Right.
And I love Cliff's idea. I do some collaborative. Every work I do is collaborative with the artist, but I don't necessarily do a ton of collaborations with other writers. People approach me all the time, and they're like, "Hey, write this thing with me," and I'm like, but no, I don't see anything original in that. But Cliff was like, "Hey, here's this world I've created. Here's this dog superhero. Here's the plot. Here's this." And I'm like, he's built out this whole thing, and it's really well thought through. And it's got a lot of heart. It's got great characters. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I absolutely want to do this, and it's fun. I have a kid also. So I love doing things that, she's 12, which means she's now seriously into manga that's meant for 18-year-olds. But, it's nice to do something that she could have read and could have enjoyed when she was a bit younger. Because comics are for kids, and we've sort of forgotten that, because now comics are really for 40-year-olds, and that's why you hand a kid a comic, like a Spider-Man comic, and they're like, I don't understand any of this, who is this, why are there two Spider-Mans, why isn't it the Spider-Man I saw in the movie, I'm so confused, what do I have to read to understand this? And I want to be able to hand kids stories and hand people stories and be like, that's why I like miniseries. Here's this thing. We started issue 1, 6, boom, done.
I think part of the problem, so there's 2 things to draft off that, Alex, is it's so many studios, because the plan is to hopefully have this be an animated series or a movie or a toy line or a video game eventually. But again, it has fucking heart. It has heart in it. And that's the thing so many IPs miss. But the thing is so many studios only want to make established IPs, and I'm like, those fucking IPs came from somewhere initially. Stan Lee woke up one day and he's like, I'm going to make these heroes, and then years went on, and then they became a thing. Somebody had the stones to make something new, and I'm funding it entirely myself, and I really, really believe in it. And that's the thing is, I think if you look at the current state of animated movies, the last couple Pixar movies have kind of been limping along a little bit at the box office. Because storylines aside, I think that animation style is tiny bit played out right now, and I think what you're seeing is the rise of 3D movies that look 2D. You look at the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. You look at the upcoming Seth Rogen produced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it almost looks stop motion. Well,
the last 2 Pixar movies were meant for 40-year-olds as well. They weren't meant for kids. The first Pixar movies were for kids, and the recent ones have just been about 40-year-old animated characters having problems, and it's you can see how as they've aged, they've taken their stories with them rather than retaining the stories and the wonder that's meant for kids that can also attract adults. They're no child stars. It's not kids entertainment unless the lead character is a kid, and none of those are kids' entertainment.
And that's the thing is, so many creatives that I know that have kids, with apart from being, great parents, what they do is if they're creatives, they'll bounce their ideas off the kid, and if it resonates with the youth, it'll hopefully resonate. And Pixar used to be really good at doing like getting everybody, kids movies, but also plays for adults, like if you don't cry in the first few minutes of Up, you're a sociopath, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
It just kind of feels like they've lost a little bit of that. I'm not here to diss Pixar because they're legendary.
Sure.
But I'm just talking about like the future of animation and where things are going to go. I back in the day, Gears won the Wired Rave Awards, and I wound up seated next to Brad Bird, Incredibles, Iron Giant.
Yeah.
I lamented the fact that Disney's 2D animation era was gone, and I missed it. I came up with Lion King and Aladdin and all that, Little Mermaid. And he said they were looking at kind of rebooting all that, as 2D animation, and we're getting the live action ones. Actually, Little Mermaid was pretty good, but still, like 2D animation, I think is kind of a lost art form in cinema to some extent.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I'm a big Disney fan myself, and just like you, I grew up with the Little Mermaid and Aladdin and the Lion King and things like that, and so for me, it's I would love to see Disney return to that art style and go back to that. I mean, we're kind of in an age where a lot of things are going back to like being cool again. You know what I mean? And so,
well, I call it the 10 to 15 year life cycle, because what you have is a new generation of kids that don't know about these. That's why stuff constantly gets remade. Because it's new to them. Because they probably didn't have a cool parent that introduced them to Aliens or something like that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Alex, I mean, you bounce stuff off your kiddo all the time, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like she's definitely in that phase where she's way too cool for me. So yeah, she says like
we had dinner with.
Go ahead.
I was just saying we had dinner with her, with Alex and her daughter's just like at that age where she's like, same thing with my 12-year-old niece. She does the sass, like, and it's the same thing. I'm a big musical fan. Just got that tattooed recently, and we're big fans of the Mean Girls musical. And when Katie winds up moving from Africa to the States, and she's like, they're tough, they're teens, and the kid walks by and goes, unsubscribe, right? And that's but that's the target demographic, and if I can win that tough demographic over, then maybe we've done something special.
For sure. I love that you mentioned too that Scrapper is not just going to be a comic series. This is going to be a whole franchise, and I love that because when I read this initially, I can definitely see that being a thing, and I would imagine at some point this is going to be a video game as well.
I mean, that's the hope. So. That's the plan.
Yes.
Like, what do you want to do in video games? You want to pet the dog. Like, there's a whole
absolutely.
website.
I always pet the dog in every game. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
That's the thing is, Scrapper's powers actually get better when he gets petted. So that's the thing is, with my 25 years of video game experience, weird flex, but okay. Video games are about the verbs. What can you do? Can you run? Can you jump? Can you shoot? Can you crouch? Can you dash? Right? Can you butt stomp? Things like that. And that was deliberately made, with Scrapper's ability set, as well as his super cool badass collar that my wife actually made out of Evo foam.
Yeah.
And it actually lights up. And I wound up posting a photo and a video of it on my other dog, my knucklehead Evie, and said, it always fits eventually. The quote from the Spider-Verse, right?
Yeah.
From Stan Lee.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love I saw that your wife had made that. I love that, by the way. Super creative. She's super creative anyway with her cosplay that she does as well. Your wife Lauren, super talented with that. I wanted to say too is that it's funny you mentioned Don Bluth, because right away when I saw your promotional materials for Scrapper, I immediately went to All Dogs Go to Heaven and Charlie. That's by far and away one of my favorite animated films. And I can kind of see you got the Scrapper has the real defined eyebrows and the eyes. And that's something that I really noticed right away. And I personally connected with, because when I was growing up, that was one of my favorite films as a kid. And I definitely noticed that too. Now I want to talk about Tank. Let's talk about Tank. I haven't really heard anything about Tank, and Tank is kind of the sidekick, right? In this comic. He's got like a little
he's the Liam Neeson role.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, what was that? Where did you come up with Tank? What was the
Tank was largely Alex's creation. So I'll let her take that one.
Yeah.
Well, Cliff wanted a mentor figure friend for Scrapper, because Scrapper's like a teenager. He's like a 14-year-old kid with
petulant
superpowers. So he's petulant, he's impatient, he rushes into things, he gets like very emotional about things very quickly. And so he needed an older mentor. And I've always had pit bulls. So I was like, well, it has to be this like grizzled old pit with one eye who kind of walks like this, with the kind of the bent in legs. He's owned by a guy called Omar who runs a gym locally. So like he's got a good human. He like has, he's really well taken care of. He's just, he was maybe a street dog himself or something, and or had just a cataract or something. Like Tank has strong morals and has gone up against things that overcame him in a way, because like he was also kind of like, trying to fight for justice and take care of people, but like he doesn't have superpowers. He just had to be smart about it and had to be tough. And so that's why he's a little beat up. But yeah, he's a good dog owned by a good person. And he's kind of the rock around which, Scrapper orbits. And yeah, like he's based on dogs that I've known and loved. And I think one of the things that really makes him sing, both in issue 1 and then in issue 2, when our new art team takes over, which is Ryan Kelly and Jordi Belair, both Sandy, the line artist for issue 1, and Ryan, the line artist for issue 2, are really, really good at animal behavior. Like, it's really hard to draw a talking animal comic, to make these characters interesting and engaging and feel like actual animals, yet still be able to talk and communicate. Without having that, weird opposable thumb thing that happens on some cartoons, or or standing on their hind legs all the time. Both of them do an amazing, amazing job at it.
Yeah. The thing is, Tank has the street smarts, and that's kind of what he mentors, Scrapper in regards to that. And, it's one of those things that, again, it goes back to the collab, like when you bounce ideas off each other, and it's like, oh, that's good. Like, one of my favorite things about the comics. Okay, so let's back up for a second in regards to the origins of some of the ideas apart from Lady. My involvement in Broadway, spending a lot of time in New York City, right? Yeah. And just seeing, the pigeons, the rats, just the stray dogs, stray cats, right? And just, as Jeff Goldblum said in I think it was Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. Mm-hmm. And so, Alex and I bounced off the idea of urban animals, and the idea of, and then also adding in a layer of mystery of, it's a domed city. And so then there's the big, question, like what's outside the dome. And I don't want to go full J.J. Abrams pyramid scheme narrative storytelling where you answer one question and ask 3 more, because you just paint yourself into a fucking corner like Lost. But you still need to have a little bit of mystery. Like, why are they in a dome? Like, what's going on outside? Like, what's this collar? Where'd this collar come from? And it could do all sorts of cool stuff. And why is this coat made of nanotechnology? And why is it when you pet him, he powers up? And so it's good to ask questions, but at some point you do need to fucking answer some of them, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And what I like about this first issue, because when you're doing a first issue about any character, people are like, what's their backstory? You do a really nice job. I'm not going to spoil anything for people, because obviously we want people to read this. I love how well you did that in this first issue, how you kind of went back and
that's all Alex with
I like that
for framing the narrative. Like, I understand narrative. I've read, Save the Cat. I've read, The Hero's Journey, Hero with 1,000 Faces, Joseph Campbell. But, Alex really did a great job of framing that in regards to, I want to, Vince Gilligan said with Breaking Bad, he wanted to turn Mr. Chips into Scarface, right? And I'm not saying, Scrapper's going to be Scarface, because Scrapper's still a hero. But you take this dog that's this innocent little puppy that is seemingly abandoned, and we'll reveal more about that in later issues. But then winds up, going over 9,000, right? That was actually the code name for the project, was K9000. But yeah, Alex,
That's awesome.
We didn't want to just like I hate it when comics start off with origin stories because it's usually the least interesting thing that happens. I'd rather just kind of pick it up along the way. So that's what we tried to do with Scrapper. Is we started in the middle of like he's doing his thing with like you'll get little hints as to his origin here and there, but you're never going to have like the extended like here is an entire issue about him in like
I agree. I don't like it when I read. Go ahead.
So hang on one sec. Sorry, I've got people knocking at the door.
No, it's all good. She's amazing, dude. She has 8,000 plates spinning at any given moment.
Oh no, that's not.
The thing is, man. It's for me. It's about narrative breadcrumbs. And like and learning the comic process has been utterly fascinating in regards to I've read comics my entire life. I started with Spider-Man, then I grew up to Preacher and The Boys. TV series is freaking great. The Mrs. that I cosplayed as Starlight and Homelander at Comic-Con this year. And but the thing is to have like a little cliffhanger in the bottom right panel, then to turn the page, and sometimes it's boom, something happens, and then to end with cliffhangers, and then wait till next month and put this on your pull list, right? It's my thing lately is learning. I love learning new industries, learning Broadway, learning restaurants, learning how to write a freaking memoir. And then fucking learning the world of comics, and like Alex has been my fucking Sherpa in that world, and I'm forever grateful for her to like teach me this world, and to see it in the comic shop, for me to infiltrate another industry. I think I had the video game thing fairly well down pat, and then to just learn like cover variants. And we did Alex, so what were the rules with the back part of the comic that we would do when we'd have somebody's dog drawn or cat drawn? Like, was that for like exclusives?
Image is really good about store variants. They contact specific stores and say, hey, do you want to do a special store variant cover? And the minimum is however many issues of it they have to order to make it the print viable. And we had a couple stores say yes. And so what we did for the back was we had, as an incentive, we had the store owner's pets drawn by this wonderful artist called Landis Blair, who draws like almost kind of like Edward Gorey, like stippling. And we put because on the back, normally it was, as you know from the comic, it's just like a picture of Scrapper and Tank and a little bit about the book. Or it's actually for issue 1, it's just Scrapper. And so instead of the picture of Scrapper on the back, we had a picture of, in one case, it was Sailfish Comics. They've got down in North Carolina, they have a lovely French bulldog, and there's a portrait of her. And then for Comics Argo in Ohio, we had a portrait of the owner's 2 cats, who are called Meg and something else.
But literally, like for me, so I'm sorry, go on.
So the fun thing for Cliff working with me is that I work on a really collaborative basis. So it's not like he gives ideas and then like just get something back later. Like he's on all the emails with all the artists. He's reviewing pencils with us. He's reviewing the lettering, and I actually do the lettering and I'm editing the book myself. So it's he's seeing a lot more steps of the process, a lot more close in than necessarily other people do when they come from another industry and start writing a comic.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I wanted to ask you, Cliff, too, because having not really had that kind of involvement in a comic before creating your own and coming up with that. I know you guys just got back from going to SDCC San Diego Comic-Con. What has this process been like for you? What did you learn about the comic industry? Maybe some things you may not have known coming into this. And what was it like going to SDCC for the first time as someone that has their own comic book out now?
It was wonderful to like actually be at freaking Comic-Con. I can fucking Comic-Con. That's right. I said it.
There you go.
And to actually have a comic that's actually in shops. Because I've been going to Comic-Con for years, and to be on 2 separate panels, it was a fucking honor. And for me, learning the process has been utterly fascinating. Issue 1, Sandy working with us, he did the pencils, the inks, and the coloring. I think issue 1 looks great. But then, there's the scheduling conflict. Sandy had to move on. So again, Alex found, Ryan and Jordy and whatnot. And I'm actually reading Jordy's book Redlands right now, which is actually really, really good. It's about a coven of witches. And she's immensely talented. But then to see the layers, this is some Jay and Silent Bob kind of shit, right? Where it's like, okay, I kind of funded and made the IP, paid for the concept art, came up with the overall kind of story arc. Alex is like, fuck yeah, I can make this work. And then reading her scripts, panel 1, top left, boom, smash, boom, panel 3, boom, full page, like blah blah blah.
Yeah, man.
And then to then get the pencils, and then to give Alex catches way more shit than I do in the pencils, by the way. And then to get the inks, and then to get the coloring. Well, it's not your first fucking rodeo, Alex. And then no, Jordy's, in my opinion, one of the best colorists in the business. Her stuff is totally like Watchmen vibes, in my opinion. And then the way the lettering, like you think it's simple stuff, but there's an entire language there with the lettering, which with the way the word balloons kind of pull you through the different sections and everything like that. And Alex actually creatively really leaned into the pigeons being idiots and the rats being these kind of like rapscallions, these little hooligans, and that just adds the chef's kiss, je ne sais quoi, to the property, in my opinion.
Yeah, no,
the pigeons and the rats are so much fun to write. I just love them because it's exactly that. The rats are just like hooligans. They're like little nasty, dirty hooligans with awful table manners, and the pigeons are like these ADHD, like super friendly, like creatures who who are like, oh, senpai, I want to help. Ooh, bag of chips. Like just fucked up. They like go after the fry. They had like every time they swim around the goldfish bowl, they see the castle for the first time, like that, like bless their hearts. But they're very sweet. So yeah,
that was actually when my wife was reading the comic, she out loud was like, oh my god, I love the pigeons. I was like, I'll be sure to let them know that when I talk to you guys today. So
it just always thank you for that. But
in fact, the pigeons have a big role in issue 2.
Oh, let's go. Okay.
There's some pooping involved. But yeah, it just reminds me, like whenever I'm in like New York City or any city that has a flurry of pigeons, like it reminds me of the Hannibal Buress, the comedian, does this bit where it's like, I have weird ambitions. I want to kick a pigeon. It's impossible to kick a pigeon. And so whenever I'm in the city and I see a pigeon, I try and kick it. And about 2 times I came this close. My wife's like, don't do it. I'm like, I could have kicked the pigeon. But I'm not big on animal abuse, but
also the pigeon will shit on your shoe.
Exactly.
They will.
Which is a sign for good luck.
Yeah. I want to talk real quick about the setting of this comic real quick. So this takes place in New Verona, and very cyberpunk dystopia type of setting. I know in interviews and even when I read this, you had said this kind of has a Blade Runner feel to it, and I really love that vibe of this setting. How important is it to you for the world building in this comic?
I mean, it's kind of a statement about gentrification, right? Because living in our little town of Raleigh, you have Southeast Raleigh, which people are like, that's the hood. And then what happens is, people buy up the houses, and then the people without a lot of money wind up getting pushed out. And if you look at what happened to San Francisco, there's a documentary on Netflix called San Francisco 2.0. And the fact that, the initial reason the tech companies moved to San Francisco was for, La Vie Boheme. They wanted the bohemian lifestyle. They wanted, the arts, right? They wanted the music. They wanted the super hip gay community. That's right. I said it. And then what happens is the rent prices go, there's a lack of housing, and then, the shit hits the fan. And so New Verona is kind of a metaphor for that. And of course I named it Verona because I was Mercutio and Romeo and Juliet in high school. Again, drama nerd.
Oh, nice.
And, but yeah, that's one thing, Smite is also, a little bit of a statement about over militarization of police, and also a statement about, abandoned animals and, the fact that they have to fight for their own. And one of the nice little touches that Alex and I commiserated on was the fact that, they're talking dogs, but, most of the grown-ups can't hear them. It's mostly the kids that can understand them. And so that's also a mini statement about kind of like, innocence of youth, right, Alex?
Yep. Yeah. Once they turn 13, they can't understand the dogs anymore, or the cats, or the pigeons, or the rats, or anything. So yeah, it's only little kids that can understand the animals.
And I mean, that's
really? Okay. That's interesting.
Well, that's the thing is, I was going back to the drama nerd stuff. I played Michael Darling in Peter Pan in 6th grade, and to some extent, I'm kind of emotionally, like, if you watch the trailer for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, it says from eternal teenager Seth Rogen. And it's like, I'm kind of, a case of arrested development, where I'm probably emotionally 15 to some extent, because, in my book, I talk about what happened when I was 15, and a lot of stuff went down. And I believe, you got to imagine, you got to create, right? And that's the thing is, if you don't have that part of you, find something that gets you out of bed in the morning. And, for me, every night I sit in the kitchen with my wife and we just wind down. And the last few weeks, I just picked up the issues and just looked at them and leafed through them, and I'm immensely proud of the work that we've done here. And I can't wait for issue 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to drop. Again, hardcover in what, March, Alex?
Yes. We're not doing a trade paperback. We're doing a really lovely hardback collection, because Image lets me do that.
Oh, nice.
And Dracula, it's the same kind of edition as Dracula Motherfucker, but like about twice as long. I just found that a really useful. People really like it, because you can see it easier in a store, because it racks spine out. So if you go to the comic shop, like, you can actually really, like, it stands out as something nice. And I feel like people are either buying things digitally, or when they do want to buy something like a collector's edition, they want to make it kind of special and nice, even if they've already read it digitally. Like, they wouldn't necessarily go buy a flimsy little trade paperback, but they will buy a hardback that's got, extras and really nice end papers, and we can do some fun design stuff. And also the Image hardbacks, they cost actually less than most Marvel paperbacks, and they're longer and nicer. So,
okay.
Well, that's the thing. It's, for me, again, on the back of my phone, I have the sticker, book slut.
Yep.
That's the thing is, we spend so much time glaring at fucking glowing rectangles, so like when it comes to physical books, I want, like, my bookshelf, my bookshelf downstairs is so fucking full that everything is overflowing onto, like, this table I have over here. And that's the thing is, like, when it comes to comics, I want a physical comic. I respect the fuck out of Comixology. We're on Comixology, if I believe. We're on Apple as well. And Alex actually has a handy link that she's been firing around. And that's the thing is, but for me, like, I'm gonna pop by my local comic shop again this evening. Walking into that comic shop and the smell of that fresh ink, it reminds me of when I was a child and I got the Legend of Zelda, the first one, and opening the instruction booklet and smelling that fresh ink. And there's just something about that smell. It's like new car smell. But the thing about the comic smell is it's like there's magic behind that smell. There's heroes, there's villains, there's worlds. And it's just, for me, I'm just like, well, what's new? What do you, there's this really cool dude named Sequoia who works at Capital Comics too, and I pop in, I'm like, well, what you got for me right now? Right. And then just, taking it over to the pub, grabbing a cocktail and just leafing through a new book is just, it's fucking magic. My wife's even working on her own comic about gargoyles, and she made a sticker for it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But just create,
Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny you guys mentioned that, because we just did an episode. We have a podcast we do called The Next Level, and we just talked about the physical and digital media and how both can be important and coexist. And I for one, when it comes to books, specifically graphic novels, comic books, I definitely prefer physical over digital. Not that digital is bad, because you want to get your you want to get what out there to as many people as possible. However, I agree. I'm all about physical copies.
Yeah, but Brian, to be frank, it kind of looks like you're fucking running out of space over there.
I am. I am. There's never enough space. Lastly, what I want to get into with you guys is the just the fact that you guys turned a dog and made him badass. The thing about dogs in most media is they tend to be like a plot device, or they die and they make people cry, which I don't have a problem with people crying. I get emotional when I see those films, and I have no shame. I'm confident in who I am to do that. You guys have done something here that I did not ever know I needed, I guess, was you're taking pets or animals and you're making them badass. And I fucking love that. I love you guys for doing that.
Well, I think
you
look
know?
at the Venn diagram of people who like superheroes versus people who like animals. It's probably pretty fucking, intersectional.
Yeah.
And that's again what happens when the kids who love Paw Patrol get a little bit older, right?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the pitch. And we have to toe a fine line there, because like dogs used as a plot device. Like the only time a dog dying in a movie made sense was fucking John Wick. Because if my wife died and left me a puppy, and then this fucker came along and killed my fucking dog and stole my car, I would murder every last motherfucker.
Right, yeah, no doubt.
And like I Am Legend, which in my opinion was a shitty adaptation of the story. I think it was Richard Matheson's one. Yeah. When Will Smith has to choke out his dog, I'm like, dude, that's just lazy writing. I'm sorry. Yeah. Am I right, Alex? Like,
yeah. It's like when characters have to be orphans to be written, or like they have to have their like no family ties. Sorry, my dog is like coming over. One of my dogs is coming over here. I'm trying to get her to like sit up so she can be seen on the Zoom, and she doesn't want to do that. She just wants to put her head on my leg and look at me. It's not dinner time.
Pick her up and throw at your fucking back. But then it's kind of similar to
she's 75 pounds. I can't pick her up because she won't get on the bed by herself. I think in her old home she wasn't allowed on the bed, so she'll either bark at me or put her front feet on the bed and be like, "Lift me up." And she actually can get on the bed herself. She just doesn't feel she should. So she makes me lift her fat ass on the bed. She's very cute.
That's the thing about dogs. I fucking love dogs, and that's the thing is like every day I wake up usually around noon because I earned it, and both of my dogs jump on my head and they sleep in the bed with us, and I give them good scratches. They do that look that kind of like looks like Andy Samberg in the Jizz in My Pants video, or it's like, and I scratch their bellies, and I smell their paws. I let them, give me what I call the cleansing, where both of them lick me like crazy, and I'm like, okay, this is getting disgusting at this point, but. That's the thing is, whenever I'm in public, I co-own the Raleigh Beer Garden in a restaurant called the Station on Person, and I go make the rounds to check on the restaurant. No, I'm just looking for dogs to pet, and there's two types of dogs that when you pet them, there's the ones where you pet them, and whenever I finish petting them, I'm like, and half the time the dogs need a fucking bath, and the phrase I've been using lately is establishing character shot. And my awesome wife, it's like she just looks for excuses to wash the dogs. And we have a mud room over there, right? And she takes them and ties them up and scrubs the hell out of them. Then they once they get washed, they come out and get the zoomies. That's one thing is if this becomes a video game, I want Scrapper, if he gets pet enough, to actually be able to get the zoomies, to bolt around just like Okami and stuff like that. But we'll see. One thing at a time.
Like you don't have any control over direction.
Yeah, invert the controls, right? That'd
be funny.
Play the Benny Hill theme too. Yeah. But that's the thing is, I haven't been this excited since the first Gears of War, and I found an amazing creative partner here, and I just think I just think she's a bad motherfucker. Like Alex woke up one day, she's like, all right, here's how shit's gonna go. I'm gonna write a comic about Dracula. What am I gonna call it? Dracula, motherfucker.
But yeah, man, I absolutely love that name, by the way.
The title was a joke, so I was arsing around on the internet with my friend Christopher Cooper, who's the artist Coop. He draws like a bunch of things, but a lot of sexy naked devil ladies.
Coop? You know Coop?
Like, yeah. Like that's how the name Dracula motherfucker came about. Because he and I both love old cars,
awesome.
And like old like psych garage music, and are friendly on the internet. And he he like Coop's idea of like a prompt post is, ladies, what fictional character would you name your vagina after? Don't say Miss Havisham. And I just wrote back Dracula motherfucker. And he's like, you need to make a comic with that title. And I'm like, all right, I will. And I did. And I started collaborating with Erica Henderson. And our second book, Parasocial, is coming out in October.
Yeah.
Parasocial's fucking dope, by the way.
Yeah, I need to pick that up. That looks really fucking badass. I mean, let's face it, anything you do is badass, Alex. So I wanted to say real quick before we get through this interview, I want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to join me here today. As someone who actually had the pleasure of working at a vet clinic for a while and getting to help out so many animals, people's pets and loved ones, fur babies, whatever you want to call them. Thank you guys so very much.
Fur baby.
It's so damn cute. So damn cute.
Baby
Always looking to
girl.
give me the stare though. Oh,
The dog is judging me.
That's called
thank you guys.
That's called the lift me onto the bed stare.
Oh
Real
yeah.
quick, as we're wrapping up, Alex and I have a running gag. Whenever your dog lays in their back and they just spread their legs and just show it all off. It's the ultimate sign of trust because dogs usually curl up because the belly protection and whatnot. But B, Alex calls it airing the fine china, and so it's a running gag with us where like when one of our dogs does it, we'll send a photo over like the china is being aired. But thanks for having us.
Years old. She's 14 years old, so I write it airing the vintage china.
That's right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you real quick, Cliff. When I heard about your dog passing away, my wife and I actually lost our Chihuahua Willow last year, back in July. She was 15. We have her up on the mantle over here, and so any stories about pets, they go straight to my heart. But this one especially, knowing that it came from your heart and both you guys' hearts as well, and I'm looking so forward to issue number 2. I can't believe we're already in the month of August. What the fuck's going on with this year, man? It's just flying by pretty quick. So yeah, issue 2 coming out later this month, and there's going to be one issue a month until December. Is that correct?
I think so.
Yep.
It's
monthly.
I can't math right now.
Yeah. So looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with our buddy Scrapper and Tank and everybody else in between. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy. And Alex, thanks for showing up
too.
too.
You, Brian.
Yeah, thank you guys, both of you. Both of you.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy your sushi. I'm a big sushi fan.
I
Fuck
shall.
yeah, man.